It was another quiet night at the office. No phone calls, no messages. Nothing but junk mail and overdue bills to keep me company. Seems nobody wants to hire a real private dick anymore. A professional like me. A guy who does the detective work nobody else wants to do. A guy who wears hats and walks around in a black and white world. I began contemplating a more profitable line of work, like politics.
All right, folks, welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on Radio Central, AM 830, WCRN. I'm Joe Mangiacotti, obviously, and for the next hour, you can join the conversation at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Hey, our text line, that's up and running at 617-297-8388, 617-297-8388. When you text that, like you do anybody else, it appears on a screen here in the studio in real time. We'll try to work it into the conversation if we can. We understand some people can't make a phone call, but they'd like to contribute anyway. But at 508-871-7000, that will get you into the studio as I broadcast from our palatial but not overly ostentatious studios here in Westboro, Massachusetts. We also stream, the station does, 24/7 to the TuneIn app like thousands of other radio stations do. So that means you can take us anywhere in the TuneIn app or tell Alexa to play WCRN. She'll do that, no questions asked. Now, I do stream this show, so you can watch it and listen to it, either on the station's Facebook page or our YouTube channel, or you can go to my social media platforms at Joe Mangi, M-A-N-G-I. Please follow me there for the Joe Mangiacotti webpage, blog there, as well as watching and listening to the show on X, Facebook, Twitch TV, LinkedIn profile, and we do stream live to Rumble. So there's many ways to watch and many ways to listen. Now, my show is then turned into a podcast, so you can actually subscribe to it to Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And when the new show drops every day, you'll be notified and you can download it there as well. And that's great for, I notice, the listening of the show bumps up after 4 and 5 o'clock on Spotify and the podcast sites because people are out of work and stuff. So it's a great option for you to have. Hey, what you heard, and by the way, Ted A is flying the board here at HQ, so he's behind the glass, and he'll get you set up and into the studio at 508-871-7000. So you heard it in the national news, Hurricane Melissa. This is a pretty big deal, folks, near Category 5 intensity. This is a very powerful storm. It hit this morning. It struck Jamaica's southern coast. It had winds of 185 miles an hour. It brought flash flooding, storm surges, widespread destruction. It's a powerful, powerful storm. Now, officials warn residents to evacuate immediately. They should have done that by now, with Jamaica's disaster minister cautioning citizens not to bet against Melissa. The storm, fueled by unusually warm Caribbean waters, became one of the 5 strongest hurricanes ever recorded in the Atlantic. Regional governments ordered mass evacuations, including nearly 1 million people, 900,000 people in Cuba. And the U.S. Navy moved ships and personnel from Guantanamo Bay, despite a U.S. government shutdown limiting staffing. Essential National Weather Service operations do continue, though. They have to. There's the essential and non-essential. Global relief efforts, right, were pretty constrained and are pretty constrained here. Donor priorities shifted toward conflicts in Gaza and Ukraine. So this is a tough situation going on down there. I feel like I should slide in to one of these Patriot commercials for your your food rations or something to remind you. And I do have this story. I didn't get into it much, but the report on the fact that FEMA was told to use political preferences on distributing emergency relief. But let's put a pin in that for a second. Now, look, this is a reminder of how critical core government functions like weather forecasting and emergency coordination are. How overextended bureaucracies can fail when priorities drift from essential public safety issues. Even amid this global commitments that we're in right now, we must maintain resources to protect citizens and regional interests when they come close to home. Now, she's going to move up the coast. When I say she, I'm talking about Melissa. I'm not sure why we've always named storms after females. I could go into a couple jokes right here. Oh, does it go alternate male, female?
Now, yeah.
And it's alphabetically,
Yes.
right? So they do. So it could be Albert, then Beverly, then Charlie, then Dorothy type of thing.
If you say so.
Whatever. Okay. So it goes alphabetically, and it goes back and forth by gender. I thought at one time we named them all females. Have we always rotated?
Yeah. It only changed maybe a year ago.
Because I always name my vehicles after females. I've never named, there's...
And ships.
Yeah.
And aircraft.
Yeah. So it tends to be a she, those pronouns. We are so pronoun sensitive, aren't we? So, look, this is a tough storm. Obviously, we will feel it eventually, even once it weakens, and it weakens when it hits the coast, our coast and land. But we'll get this. We'll get the wind. We'll get the rain. Melissa's 185 mile an hour. This is one of the most powerful Atlantic hurricanes since we started recording these things. Hurricane Allen in 1980, that hit 190. Hurricane Dorian back in 19 hit 185. In the Caribbean, sea surface temperatures are 2 to 3 degrees Celsius above average, so that's warm, unusually warm. Early reports indicate catastrophic flooding and infrastructure loss across Jamaica's southern coast and interior hillsides. But think about evacuating 900,000 residents in Cuba, in the eastern provinces. That's a lot of people, folks. That's a lot of people. Evacuated 1,000 non-essential personnel from Guantanamo Bay, redeployed 8 Navy ships. So because of Melissa, the Navy has to change location and mission of the ships, of the Navy. 8 ships supporting Caribbean drug interdiction under operation. So those are being affected on this. And let's, the whole fact that we have sent, I think it was the Ford carrier group to the Caribbean. Now that, we'll talk about it in more detail, but this show of strength with our Navy in the Caribbean, it's not all about the boats, all about the drug boats. It's not all about the drug interdiction. It has a lot to do with posturing and a show of force to China. China has worked their way in to South America. That's one of the reasons Trump took so much attention on Panama. Because Panama, the canal, struck up a deal for China to manage part of the portway, and that's just unacceptable for a canal we dug. And many lives were lost in the construction of that canal. And they've done this deal going in to build these nation ports as long as they get to build their own port too. And that's just unacceptable for China to have such a presence and so much power in our hemisphere. So it's not just the drug interdiction going on in the Caribbean, folks. It has a lot to do with having our Navy show some force there, positioning ourselves in that area, because it's going to be unacceptable to Trump or the United States to have China continue to get a foothold in South America. Not allowed. Follow up on this, though, Melissa. The World Food Program pre-positioned, good move, pre-positioned 450 metric tons of aid in Haiti. And that's actually only a fraction of its normal stock. Sounds like a lot, 450 metric ton. Now, the problem here is due to donor reallocation toward Gaza and Ukraine relief efforts. They can't send 450 metric tons is a lot. But think about the number of people affected and that they have to eat. So it's a lot of food, but it will disappear quickly. Meanwhile, we're sending aid and food to Gaza and Ukraine. We have these situations going on all over the world. And this situation reveals the strain on international disaster response systems. It does question global aid prioritization. Now, a hurricane of this magnitude, of this strength, I don't know if it qualifies as a black swan event because we know hurricanes are going to happen. We literally call the time of year the hurricane season. But we don't always expect 180, 185 mile per hour winds. That's not normal.
It's over the top.
It is over the top. It's very big. And I'm sure the climate change people are going to really spin this and position this as a evidence of disaster coming. 508-871-7000. Let's jump to the phones real quick. Mark is waiting patiently. Hey, Mark, what say you?
You're a pilot.
Yep.
Oh, weather guy. You gotta be if you want to stay alive, and you're a pilot, right?
Yeah.
That thing is under 900 millibars. That low.
Yeah.
Below 900 millibars. That thing is a monster from hell.
It is. It is. I saw it, watched some of the satellite photography of the eye of the storm and the power of it. It is a beast.
Buck 85 on the winds with gusts up to 220. It's faster than a NASCAR race car, isn't it?
Yeah, they're going. Yeah, I think it is. I can't be sure, but yeah, that's pretty fast.
They're also saying it could dump in some places in Jamaica 40 inches of rain in like 24 hours. I mean, that's a recipe for disaster. All right, the last thing I want to say will take up too much of your time. Have you heard of an outfit called Working Family Party? The Working Family Party?
I haven't, Mark. No.
You might want to look it up, or maybe one of your associates, what's his name, George Landers?
Landers,
right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's an investigative reporter, and he writes books. You talk about a book waiting to happen. You might want, if you got his phone number, call him up. It's workingfamilyparty.org.
Okay.
And he'll be very interesting.
All right.
What you're going to hear about. You wonder where Mignotti's getting his money? Look into this outfit.
Yeah.
Look into this.
I will do that. We're against the clock, Mark. Thank you for the call. I will look into this. I'll tell George about it, folks. And Mamdani, this has been happening since 2014. This didn't come out of anywhere. Back in 2 and 2. All right, folks, welcome back here to the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Reminding folks you can join the conversation like Mark did a minute ago at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. And remind folks we do stream the show, so you're welcome to join the other viewers on my social media platforms at Joe Mangi Show. That could be Facebook, X, Twitch TV, LinkedIn profile, or you can go over to Rumble, where there is a Joe Mangiacotti Show channel page, and that means you can stream multiple. I can stream multiple, but you can find it at multiple places. So feel free to join us on the streaming as well. So you've seen the headlines, right? Millions could lose their food stamps as the government shutdown continues. And the USDA says it can't legally use its contingency funds to cover November SNAP benefits. And that's 42 million Americans. That's right. 42 million Americans could see their food stamp assistance vanish come the 1st. Now, I think that they load this, so they have a card, just like an ATM debit card. And each state government, through federal funds, will load that up every month based on what you're, again, entitled to. And whatever their formula is in Massachusetts, Department of Transitional Assistance, I believe, DTA, they administer the SNAP program for the federal government. So the government funnels money into the state fund turns around, loads up these cards. And if you've listened to me at all over the years, you know I've referred to the SNAP or the debit cards or the EBT program different reasons at different times. We've got the time that they said, meaning the state, hey, wouldn't it be a good idea if we registered everybody who gets food stamps? Now, if you're a one-party state like Massachusetts, and Democrats are running everything, I understand the logical thinking there. If they're on food stamps, probably going to be Democrat, or at least we can get them to support the Democratic Party. So when we send out any mail, and they don't have to send this out. Now, back in the day, you actually got stamps, a book of stamps that you could go to the grocery store and use. And they used to you could get cheese and bread and things like that. But over the years, because the argument was if you had to use this food stamp or this book in a store, it was degrading. And it couldn't, it made you feel bad. So they developed this card to make it look like you were using your debit or ATM card or something, or even a credit card. Then you swipe it and put in a PIN code, and they load it up every month. Now, I made reference to that guy last week whose viral video. He was complaining that his $1,700, he woke up to get a letter saying that $1,700, because he has 4 kids, wasn't going to be available. And that how dare they do that? They have to pay it. That it's you, the taxpayer's responsibility to take care of his kids. Whole nother story. But that's the attitude that we're coming from. So let's be clear what's happening here. Well, let me get a little more into this. Now, the coverage has been wall-to-wall. It's been outrage, right? Finger-pointing, emotional appeals. People will starve. Families will suffer. This is a humanitarian disaster. And sure, there is genuine hardship here. And nobody wants to see American families wondering where their next meal will come from. But what's striking here, what's really striking, is how shocked people seem to be at the scale of it all. And this is another situation, I think, where the actions or lack thereof of the Democratic Party, by not simply doing the decent thing and passing a flat, clean CR bill, continuing resolution, meaning let's just keep everything operating instead of inflicting this pain onto the American citizens, while everybody in Congress is getting their paycheck. And I think when there's a government shutdown, congressional members should have to forego their pay like other government employees have to do that. Bernie Sanders was asked this, and he said, we got young members. And yes, what do you think the single mother out there working 2 jobs is depending on this? But I think what the Democrats didn't realize is the number of people who receive this assistance, and it's drawn attention to it now. 42 million people out of roughly 340 million in the country are on food stamps. That is about 1 in 8 Americans, and that number has barely budged since the pandemic. For some reason, that's just the cost of compassion for others. It's a warning flare about how dependent we've allowed this nation to become on government programs. Now, back when Barack Obama came into office, I remember doing an earlier version of this show with Mike Wade, and we talked about there was this incredible uptick to 2 things. 1, people on the SNAP program. 2, people who went into SSI or SSDI, Social Security Disability, skyrocketed under Obama. And this shutdown, my friends, is pulling back the curtain. It's showing just how many of our fellow citizens are reliant, not temporarily, but permanently, on a system that only functions when Congress gets its act together. And here's the question. We ought to be asking if a single budget impasse can threaten food security for tens of millions. Maybe the problem isn't the shutdown. Maybe it's the system itself. And this is happening because the Democrats just won't say, let's continue everything while we try to hammer this out. They're insisting, Schumer wants Mike Johnson to go in the back room and work a deal out. Democrats want $1.5 trillion in spending added to this to keep the government open. These are the same Democrats who, in previous shutdowns, went on about how bad it is to have a shutdown and how much pain. But they're willing to, and we had a prominent Democrat say, this is the only leverage we have. Yes, it's very difficult. It's going to be painful for citizens, but it's the leverage. We won't want to give up our leverage. So it's about politicking on their party and not doing the right thing. So the reason that the government shut down is not Trump or the Republicans. They have tried 13 times to pass a CR, and the Democrats keep saying no to this. So before I came on, I got forwarded, I got a copy of a text. I want to read the content. This is a text that was sent out to from the Department of Transitional Assistance to all of those people who are registered with the DTA for food stamps. So this is the text everyone got today. President Trump, now, remind you, this is the state government sending this. And I'm going to read this word for word, folks. President Trump is currently choosing not to issue November SNAP benefits that help you and many families put food on the table. You also may have your benefits further cut starting in November because of changes congressional Republicans and President Trump enacted in the One Big Beautiful Bill. Learn more and check back for updates at mass.gov/DTA. That's word for word what the state government sent out. This is a one-party state who are extremely political, bias in this text. They're telling all of the recipients of food stamps that President Trump is choosing not to send them to you. He woke up one morning and said, I'm going to mess with the lower income people. Now, remind you, there are members of our armed services. If they have a couple kids, their income in the military is so low that they qualify for food stamps under the formula. And it has nothing to do with Trump deciding, in the way they say this, he's choosing. The government can't send money that's not available. And I'll get into how this is, that there's actually the billions of dollars a month we spend on food stamps for these 42 million Americans, and how the money shifts around. But let's go to the phones. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Let me jump to the phones. Gary has been waiting patiently. Hey, Gary, what say you?
Good afternoon. I look at this, and I'm a big fan of the fact that if the system was not so expensive, I don't think the Republicans would be dug in as far as they are, because there are certain things that they simply will not do. For example, if you drive anywhere up and down the Eastern Seaboard these days, you will get a ticket or a toll. You'll get a toll bill for going through a toll booth in, say, North Carolina. Well, we can share that information. Okay. How about all the different states start sending their information to a federal database that says this person with either this green card number or this Social Security number is on food stamps? And we're going to compare that against the IRS to see exactly what they filed for but they won't do any of this. Because they'll say, well, it's a privacy matter. You're living, like you were just saying, it's an entitlement now. It used to be that you were living by the good graces of the taxpayer. And you have taken that and you've said, well, no, it's an entitlement. No, it's not. Those of us who work for a living, we're looking at the Democrats and going, have you lost your minds? Because we know what they're all holding out for. They want more benefits for illegals. They want more benefits for these hospitals that will treat illegals, and then say, well, it's not for illegals. It's for undocumented private citizens. Well, wait a minute now. What do? We changed the name here so that we could dance around this particular subject. Now, you take a look at everybody who's in work today, myself included. I'm on lunch. We are paying overpriced health insurance for ourselves. We're paying overpriced health insurance for our poorer citizens. We're paying overpriced health insurance for people on green cards. We're paying overpriced health insurance now for what the Democrats want in this bill for illegals. When does it end? The Democrat Party used to be the party of the kitchen table.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that went around that you discussed at the kitchen table, your job, your health insurance, your costs of just maintaining a household. Now they don't care about that.
Hey, Gary, I'm against a hard break I can't control. You're welcome to hold on and finish your thought, but I have no control. I do have to pause here. It's just a 2-minute break at the bottom of the hour, but we're going to do that here. Again, Gary, you're welcome to stay on and finish your thought. But you can join the conversation at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. And join us on the live stream as well at Joe Mangiacotti Show, Facebook, X, and Rumble. Back in 2 minutes and 2 seconds, folks. All right, folks, welcome back here to the second half of the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Reminding folks you can join the conversation at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. And feel free to join us on the stream on any of the social media platforms. We're talking about the food stamps, the SNAP program going into the break. Gary is on the line with us, and I want to finish because I started to tell this, and I just want to, before I forget to tell it. So the state at one time said, "Hey, you know what? We're gonna mail registration forms. Tell them, and look, we'll register you. Fill this form out." And they mailed it out to all of the food or SNAP program recipients in Massachusetts, and they got back, I think it was like 18,000 of the mailings they sent based on the address, because you don't have to go in and get it. They just reload the card, which meant that 18,000 people on food stamps, an EBT card in Massachusetts, did not live at the address the state has on record. They either didn't exist, or it was a drop house or someplace that got returned because the person doesn't live there. So doesn't that beg the question, who are the people receiving it? And why aren't they living where the address is that we think they're living? And how many people use that same address? Does the system look and say how many people at that address are getting their cards reloaded every month?
Makes you go,
It does make you go, So that again was a situation where it backfired, because they thought that they were going to get everybody on food stamps registered, preferably as a Democrat, and 18,000 of those came back. Now, just to fill in before I go back to you, Gary, so this SNAP fund it's funded annually by appropriation from Congress. When annual appropriations lapse because of shutdown, states cannot receive new funding unless emergency or contingency funds are tapped into. Now, here's the thing. We have approximately somewhere between $5 and $6 billion in the SNAP program contingency reserves right now. But the November projected monthly payout is $8 billion. $8 billion a month. $8 billion for November 1st, meaning even full use of the contingency reserve would not cover the full shortfall. And according to the USDA memo, states that say self-fund November, they use some emergency funds here in Massachusetts to cover their portion of it. Well, those payments would not be reimbursed under the current law. And Gary, to your point about the Orwellian use of words, changing it, there was a situation where the Chicago mayor chewed into a reporter who used the term illegal alien, which is the proper term, which is exactly the verbiage used in the federal law referring to people who enter the country illegally. They are, in fact, categorized as illegal aliens. And that Brendan, what's the mayor's name? Brandon, whatever his name is.
Brendan Johnson?
Mayor Johnson of Chicago chewed the reporter out for using illegal alien when that is the absolute proper legal term to use. Because they do want to, it's very Orwellian, right? Let's change the verbiage. And not only change the verbiage, and just in the culture, not in the legislation, because that requires Congress to have to vote on it. And force you to use the language they want you to use. And they're doing it whether they're talking about illegal aliens or male or female or anything. They're projecting. And freedom of speech, folks, it not only means you can say whatever you want and express your feelings in many different ways through signs and posts and verb, saying it, but freedom of speech also means that you can't be forced to use language that you don't want to. Yeah, compelled to use language. So just when you mentioned that about the thing, that just triggers me too. I love that one too, trigger word.
Yeah, changing the meaning.
Yeah, change the meaning or change the words we use to describe something because they think it sounds less. Just like they try to conflate migrant with illegal alien. They want you to think it's the same thing. But finish your thought, Gary.
Well, it wasn't just a question of them changing the name to go ahead and make it seem like it was more palatable. In this particular case, they were doing it to specifically skirt the wording of the law. Like if I say that you cannot plant, you cannot own, say, a dog, and I say, well, no, my dog now self-identifies as a cat, so I can own one. You know what I mean? This is the kind of nonsense that they pull. And it's long past time that this entire program, 42 million people on that program. I remember sitting in Walmart one day watching a guy with a notebook and a whole bunch of EBT cards take money out of the ATM machine, go right over to where the customer service thing was, take the money, and wired it off someplace. Now, you tell me how much of that is going on, because all you need to do is set up a bank account, and you can go anywhere in the country. How do I know you're not collecting this in 10 different states? I have heard tell. I remember hearing from a little old lady in Rhode Island who was telling me that she knew that there were a whole group of people that got on a bus once a month and they went down and they physically did something in New York to make sure that their benefits continued, and then they came back. It's like, well, what do you mean? They live here, right? Oh, yeah, they live here. They collected double dipping. Yeah. So it seems to me that if you can track my license plate from one state to another, then I have no problem with you saying, listen, you're on the public dime, which basically makes you de facto public servants.
You're a ward of the state at that point.
Yep, you're a ward of the state, and your rights end at the end of my bank account. So going forward, clean the system up, and then maybe we wouldn't be so harsh when it comes to these sort of shutdowns.
Yeah,
I gotta say something about this, because I agree with you, but unfortunately that's not the way the Fourth Amendment works. What they would need to do is create a codicil in the agreement for the SNAP card that relinquishes their civil rights with regards to reporting what they're doing with their money.
Yeah. Good point. Thank you, Gary, for the call. Appreciate it. 508-871-7000. Let's jump to Ken, who's been waiting patiently. Hey, Ken, what say you?
Hello, Joe. I brought my Hoover, clean up.
Yeah.
So just a few things following up on Mark. Tell George it's George. George Landreth that it's doing the Working Families Party.
Okay.
You only
really curious.
Billion to spend around the world to destroy it.
I'm sorry.
That's what we're saying. That's simple.
Yeah.
And the first topic, about hurricane names.
Yeah.
You're touching on my profession here. So,
okay. What is your profession? I don't know if I ever knew your profession.
Yeah, someday I'll tell you when it's over.
Okay.
All right. So, women's names have been used since 1953, exclusively to 1978. The greatest one in New England was just the 38 hurricane, because they didn't have names back then, and I could tell you stories about that. Because my grandfather slept through it.
Wow.
And he was involved in it.
So there was a time that it was just females, and then they went to the...
Right.
Okay, I thought it was, yeah.
And then it became both in 79.
Okay.
Then, how do we define American? You mean you have 2 feet in America, so you're American.
Well, like Mamdani says he's African because his family happened to travel to Africa when he was born. You know what I'm saying? I love Gutfeld's thing the other night. That's like saying my mother gave birth in Walmart, so I'm a Walton. I'm one of the family. It doesn't work that way. You know what I'm
the
saying?
point is-
Except America's the only place, you know, that you can become American by being born here. Nobody else has
no.
birthright citizenship.
No. We're saying on this whole SNAP program,
Yeah.
42 million.
Oh, yeah.
You're reading the propaganda, Joe.
Well, I'm reading what the news,
It's
what
not
articles
42
say.
Americans.
Say again?
42 Americans. It's people who happen to be here, which include
Right.
Suppose,
So part of what we're going to talk about, Ken, and let me ask you then, because a good number of people who receive both Section 8 housing and SNAP program happen to be illegal aliens.
no, they're the biggest proportion.
Yeah. So the question
They're
is,
the most likely to be.
should because I know HUD actually has taken steps, because it's something like 38% of the Section 8 housing. And actually, I'm not disregard. I said 38% because I don't know what the percentage is, but a big percentage of people who receive federal housing, say through the Section 8 program, are actually not citizens. And we have a large number of people, and I know for a fact people here in Massachusetts who are illegally here. And I'm not talking about the people who got some kind of, you know, they got an order to report and they have a court date 7 years down the line. These are people who have never interacted with Border Patrol or ICE, who are here in Massachusetts, and I know for a fact that they're getting food stamps. So the question becomes, should they get food stamps? If you're not an American citizen, should taxpayers have to wake up every day and fund the taxes that give you food stamps if you're from another country who happen to, Ken, to your way of phrasing it, you happen to have both feet on the ground on American soil?
The simple answer is no, because those aren't the rules that my grandparents came here. My grandparents need sponsors, meaning if they couldn't afford themselves, the sponsors paid for anything they needed. Those are the rules, and assimilate. That's what's destroying America.
So the second thing you said is so important. It's the assimilation. It's you don't get to come to another country, wipe out that country's culture, wipe out that, which is a accumulation of everybody's culture. But you don't get to do away with the Constitution and the laws in our sovereignty and the border. You come to this country, to your point, as my 4 grandparents all migrated here through Ellis Island and had sponsors, and they had to report to the police station every month, and they couldn't go get any kind of benefit that didn't exist at the time. And the sponsors fed them every day, and they had to get a job, and they had to learn to speak English enough to be able to function. And that, I think, is the 1-2 in this. It's you come here, you don't expect to be given anything, and you assimilate into the country under our laws. We see Mamdani. Now we've got videos surfacing of him over the last few years talking about taking over and bringing in the Muslim way of life. And we've done this. If we want to see our future, Ken, I think we can just look to London and some of the major cities in England. We're against the clock. Final thought real quick, 10 seconds.
Mamdani is going to try to force everybody in New York City to become Muslim. He
Yeah.
stated as much.
He did. All right, Ken, thank you for the call. We have to take our, third and final break. That went very quick here. 508-871-7000. Stick with us. We'll come back for the fourth and final segment on the other side. Back in 2 minutes, 10 seconds, folks.
Are you looking for a holistic...
All right, folks, welcome back here to the fourth and final segment on the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN Radio Central. You can join the conversation for the time we have left together at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000, or the text line at 617-297-8388. 617-297-8388. Shifting gears a little bit because we made reference to this early voting in New York, and this is a well-watched race, guys. New York City's mayoral contest surged over this weekend. 164,190 ballots cast, roughly 5 times the first weekend early turnout from 4 years ago, and far above June primary's first 2 days. Now, the breakdown's kind of interesting because voters aged 55 plus comprised just over 50% of early voters, while the 24 to 34-year-olds made up about 16%. A notable reversal from the primary when the younger voters dominated the early turnout. That is interesting. Analysis say the older skew could benefit independent candidate Andrew Cuomo, who polls best among older voters, while campaigns for Democratic nominee, who is a Democratic socialist, Zohran Mamdani, and others continue aggressive ground operations. Campaign messaging is focusing tightly on public safety, housing, affordability, education, turnout strategies as the city heads towards Election Day. Now, 164,190 early votes over the first weekend here. 33,000 in the comparable early weekend 4 years ago. That's a pretty large jump. In June's primary first 2 days was 66,600. This weekend massively exceeded that, implying different dynamics for the general election versus the primary. And the early voting advantages candidates whose supporters are motivated and organized to vote before Election Day. Campaigns that can convert enthusiasm into early ballots obviously is a benefit for them there. And you've got Cuomo complicate the plurality, the purity of this outcome, because he, as he puts it, he's the real Democrat, he feels, in this. And we've got a socialist, and my reference earlier is there's video coming out with all kinds of stuff about what he says, but there was also one undercover video talking to a Democratic operative who was saying this isn't coming out of anywhere, that this whole process to start to get socialists and Muslims into government actually began in an orchestrated campaign in 2014. And we've got these resurfaced Zohran Mamdani video linking the NYPD to the IDF. Now, there's all kinds of videos coming out here. But Mamdani is now getting, in his lead, folks, that margin has drastically dropped, by the way. If the rate continues on this, he's going to go into the actual election day polling a lot closer to Cuomo than he is now, right? It's just a massive hit to his lead, by the way, in the last 48 hours. But he's also under fire now, and you're going to see everything's going to come out now in this week, a week and a half. As he's under fire because of this video resurfaced. It showed him making some pretty inflammatory conspiracy-tinged remarks linking the New York Police Department to the Israeli Defense Forces. In the clip, he said he says, "Hey, he self-describes himself again as a democratic socialist," and he accused the NYPD of being trained in apartheid tactics by Israel, suggesting a coordinated system of oppression shared between America and Israeli security forces. The comments, widely condemned as anti-Semitic and irresponsible, have reignited the debate over the influence of far-left ideology within the Democratic Party. And you've got, we see it all the time, the stupidity with Swalwell coming out, right, the other day, the pledge to raise the Trump ballroom, right? He comes out, Swalwell, if you missed this, the Democrat, the honeypot victim, he's the one with Fen, who was absolutely manipulated by Chinese intelligence. And by the way, they're releasing records now under the Trump administration, stuff that's been sealed, and we'll get into that another time, but he has some interesting charges under his belt. But he declared that any Democrat running for president in 2028 should pledge to demolish President Trump's proposed new White House ballroom on day one. So if that doesn't sum up the left thinking, day one, you're going to spend millions of dollars to destroy the ballroom that was paid for with private funds, majority of which was President Trump's funds. On day one, you're going to use taxpayer money to get rid of something that was gifted to us for the American people. And if there was any campus that needed a ballroom, it is the White House campus needs a ballroom. We literally don't have any place to host state dinners. We have asked heads of state and dignitaries to dine in a tent and use porta potties in the past. So he's really saying this. Swalwell framed the ballroom as a symbol of Trump's excess and a monument to corruption. Where the hell did he get this from? In the corruption, are you kidding me? Where were you in the entire days that Doge was on the front page? He has demanded that every Democratic candidate for president swears to tear that ballroom down on day one. Now, his demand has provoked pushback and mockery across the political spectrum. Critics are calling it theatrics and raising questions about priorities. This is ridiculous. Swalwell is a joke in a lot of ways. But this video, there's a lot of these videos of Mamdani, and you're going to see more and more between now and Election Day. Which is it a week from today or 2 weeks from today? 2 weeks from today. No, it's 2 weeks. It's November, so it's 2 weeks from today. So I think in the next 2 weeks you're going to see a lot coming out because his leads has already dropped, and Cuomo could actually get it. I like that guy, Curtis. He started the Guardian Angels, right? You know who I'm talking about. He has the red beret.
He's the only one that actually sounds like a native New York City.
He absolutely. In that debate when they got into the rent stuff, right? And Mamdani's trying to make, when he says Cuomo in his $7,000 a month apartment, like he's an idiot for paying it, because this guy and his wife are in a rent-controlled apartment. And they both come from money. And Swalwell, I know, lives like in 600-700 square feet with 20,000 cats. I don't know why, but I've seen him on Gutfeld, and he talked about the fact they live in basically smaller space than my master bedroom, and they have like literally 20 cats. So, and he's paying, I think, $3,200 or some ridiculous thing. And Mamdani's trying to make it like Cuomo's an idiot for paying $7,000 a month. First of all, he's paying market price. So I think he can live wherever the hell he wants to live if he's willing to pay whatever he's going to pay. You, on the other hand, got into this rent-modified or rent-controlled apartment a couple years ago, and then you got elected to the state assembly, and you're going to be making a lot, even if you lose the mayor's race, never mind winning it. And then, of course, if he wins it, he moves into Gracie Mansion. No, another public housing. But, look, videos are going to come out on this guy. And his goal, I mean, when he came out the other day, if you missed this, in his speech, he even teared up a little bit because he wanted to tell us about his aunt. His aunt, who stopped taking the subway 20 years ago because she was uncomfortable with the attitude that she thought she was getting because she wore a hijab. Are you kidding me? First of all, it comes out, it's not his aunt. It's some distant cousin. And now, apparently, she's passed away. So it's not an aunt. It's a distant cousin who passed away. So you can never, ever verify this. So I'm calling it now. Flag on the play. I'm calling BS on the whole story, first of all. Second of all, read the room, dude. You're telling New Yorkers that the tragedy of that day of 9/11 was the fact that your not aunt, but distant cousin, who you can't identify, felt uncomfortable wearing hijab on the subway. Not the almost 3,000 people that perished by being burned to death or leaping from the 100th floor to their death. You're not talking about the families of these. Are you kidding me? You jamoke. It's absolutely disgusting that he did this. And I don't think the mystery why his lead is dropping, the margin is plummeting right now. This, to me, folks, is a Kamala Harris situation. Let this man talk. Ask him some questions. Play these old videos. Ted, you want to add
We
something?
used to call it late October surprise.
Yeah.
I don't think this is going to be a surprise. I think you're absolutely right. I think this is sort of one of those sleeper deals that everybody knows about and nobody who's going to vote is talking about.
Yeah. I think back to the 2016 Trump election because I was sitting in this chair during that election. And the polls had Hillary winning by a zillion votes, right? So far ahead, Trump hadn't have a chance in all this. And I said it then, and I'll say it, I'm not as confident as I was with Trump. But I said it back then. I said, the polls are all wrong. Because who are you asking? Because in those days, in those dark days, folks, people who supported Trump wouldn't admit it. Even to an anonymous phone survey, if they could get you, weren't going to do it. Nobody was talking to the fact that they were going to go in the booth and just vote Trump. They didn't want to hear it from you. They didn't want to listen. They didn't want any. They just were quiet, to Ted's point. Just quiet. They knew it. They went in and they did their thing in the voting booth, and that was it. And I think if he does win, I think he's going to win by a much smaller margin than anticipated. And if he wins, I mean, Cuomo has a lot of baggage, And I brought this up before. Remember, in the primary, a very small percentage of the Democrats in any community actually vote in the primary, and then it's usually the most active people. But hey, we got to wrap up the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. I'm Joe Mangiacotti. Follow me on social media platforms or everywhere at Joe Mangi Show, M-A-N-G-I. Back tomorrow at 1 o'clock. That will wrap up today's show, folks. You have a fantastic day. Joe out.